Alright everybody, welcome back! So this is the AV-8B. It's an American second generation Harrier that came this update. In this case is in the Italian tech tree, as a matter of fact. The US did not receive it yet, which is a little bit annoying. In my opinion, they should just add it to every tree at the same time, but it is what it is. They've done this before with the Italian tech tree. It's nothing sort of shocking, per se. And there's a lot going on with this thing. It's very similar to the British second-gen Harrier, the GR7, which got added a while back, and honestly I'm surprised this wasn't added at the same time. This thing is very much a mixed bag in ARB right now. As you can see, it pulls a ton of AOA, and it does have a great thrust-to-weight ratio, which is kind of what you expect from, one of these VTOL aircraft. It needs to be able to get off the ground. And this allows you to pull some absolutely insane AOA to pull inside of people. That's pretty much where the advantage of this thing ends. In ARB, this thing is not a good airframe. It bleeds all of its speed incredibly quickly whenever you turn, and it does have a hard time getting it back just because it doesn't have an afterburner. So even though it does have a pretty good thrust-to-weight ratio, that falls off very quickly at the higher speeds. The thrust is very much optimized for that low speed, right? So what this means is that you have a plane which is already slower than pretty much everything else. And then they also added extra weight to this compared to the Harrier GR7, so it actually has a worse thrust-to-weight ratio at those higher speeds than the GR7, despite having a better engine. Your best bet with this thing is going to be trying to pull off some weird shots, that require a lot of AOA, stuff like that, because it will pull really hard. It's just that if you don't get that kill in the first turn or two, you're probably toast. You are able to 1v1 people pretty effectively, but the problem is in ARB, you never really get to do that. And then, to be honest, if someone just wants to leave, they kind of can. Because by the time you get your nose around to get the AMRAAM off, there's a very good chance they just outrun it, because that's how slow you are. I've had several times like that where I just 180 on somebody, and they're already 3 kilometers away, and the AMRAAM just can't catch up, because I don't have the speed to go ahead and allow it to actually, hit it. It is also worse in the Harrier GR7 in the flares department as well. It only gets 180 max, which is still more than enough for most games, and you will be using these a lot because of all the R73 and AMRAAM spam around. You can't just turn on periodic countermeasures like you can in the GR7, just not have to worry, which would be really nice considering with how slow this thing is. It's incredibly difficult to flare the AIM-9M and the R73. So for those of y'all who don't know how these missiles work, they have different IRCCM types. I've spoken about this before at length, but the easiest way to explain this, right, is that the AIM-9M, what it does is it turns off its seeker head. So you can see that guy changed directions after he flared, and the AIM-9M missed, right? So for, I think, about a second or so after it sees flares, the AIM-9M cuts its seeker head off, goes into inertial navigation, and then it turns itself back on once the flares are out of the seeker head. Which is why someone that's flying in a straight line, for example, or just someone that's being very predictable, right? Even if that's just turning in the same direction, the AIM-9M is going to be able to very easily hit that. But if someone knows what they're doing, all they have to do is press the flare button and pull, in most cases, to get out of the seeker head. The problem is this thing is so slow that it's not able to do it. One thing that being slow and having thrust vectoring does allow you to do, though, is what they call vector and forward flight, or VIFF. And you can see I am thrust vectoring inside this F-16, and I managed to get a shot off. And luckily, I dodged that shot right there from the F-4S, or he just misses, honestly. This is the problem with VIFFing, though, is that I am now incredibly slow. I'm going 130 kilometers an hour in the middle of the battlefield, and there are planes flying around me right now. I should be dead. And I will die here in a second because you can't see it because the spotting system absolutely sucks, but there's an F-4E a kilometer away from me. Yep, there he goes right there. And he's going to fire a 9J, and once again, because I'm so slow, I can't get out of the way of the missile in time. Going back to how IRCCM works again for a second, the R73 simply shrinks its gate width down. And so that means if someone is shooting one at you, it is incredibly difficult to dodge. If you want to see one, there's actually a case where at the very beginning of my Make With a 9 SMT video, where I fired an AV-8B side aspect, ignores all of his flares, and absolutely smokes him. But in exchange for having those other downsides, you do get what is, in my opinion, the most fun gun on any plane right now. This gun is called the Equalizer, and it's the same gun, or basically the same gun, as what the F-35 actually has right now. The F-35 has a 4-barrel version of this gun. They call it the GAU-22 instead, but it's the same exact gun, just with one less barrel, so it's lighter. This gun is so fun. It has good penetration, for ground RB, but for me, in air RB, which is what I'm concerned about, Being 25 gives it a lot more momentum, right, compared to a 20mm shell. Also, it's faster than the Vulcan shell. It goes 1100 meters a second compared to like the 1036 or whatever the Vulcan has. So you have a shell that is faster and has better energy retention. It also has a ridiculously high fire rate, and it also sounds cool because, you know, everybody loves birds, right? Now, you don't get to use it that often because the flight performance doesn't really let you, but whenever you do get to use it, like for example with this F-14B right here, I can pretty much just point and click because, like, it's a laser beam, and I just absolutely adore this gun. It is by far the best thing about this plane because you can get AMRAAMs on the F-16C and have a much better time as well. This is actually a perfect example, by the way, of what I was talking about. This MLD is being very predictable, and it actually ignores his flares in the head-on. Now, if he had turned, then the AMRAAM would have had a much more difficult time actually picking him up. In the future, this plane will get AMRAAM. It actually has the F-18's radar, which, if you've been wondering why you're seeing F-18 on your RWR, that's why, because this thing has that. And so that means that, you know, going forward, this will have a better kit than what it currently has with just the AIM-9Ms, but it's also probably going to go in BR, so very much a mixed bag in that case. We'll have to see how exactly that turns out. But in the meantime, honestly, I don't really think it can get much worse. At 11.7, you're getting constant up tiers, and you're having to fight F-16s and MiG-29s pretty much every game, and the Harrier is just really not able to compete in that case, unfortunately. It can do okay against stuff like Phantoms and MiG-21s, but even then it still kind of struggles. This is very much not a good platform, at least for top tier ARB. I'd probably still recommend just playing the F-16 ADF and the Italian tech tree, especially since it got that buff. Now, one thing this does do very well is CAS, so it gets a nice selection of Maverick Ds and GBUs. Personally, I prefer using the Maverick Ds right now, especially with the Lightning Pod, because I'm really worried about SAMs. You can see this thing does actually get the launch warning for SAMs, which is awesome. And so I'm able to see this guy launch my Maverick and go ahead and go evasive. I don't know if you saw, but they actually did buff the D Mavericks this patch. They're actually now smokeless as well, which is pretty amazing. So I'm able to go evasive, his missile misses, and then while I'm doing this, my Maverick is just on the way for that Florak Red. Once again, this plane isn't as good as something like, you know, for example, the F-16, because it's much slower, but still, you know, Italy now has a platform that has Mavericks on it, which I think is pretty cool, because previously it only had GBUs, which are still good, don't get me wrong, but getting the option of taking Mavericks if you prefer, which, especially with how many SAMs are up in most of these games, is really, really appreciated. Like, here's another one, and I'm just going to absolutely beam here with a Maverick from very, very, very far away. He probably never saw it launch because of that smokeless motor, and all I gotta do is just turn away, and I don't have to worry about being hit. The only SPAA I really worry about in this thing right now is the Pantsir, because it can actually shoot the Mavs out of the air, and it will do so. So I actually attacked by a plane after this, and I'm able to go ahead and fend it off with the AIM-9M, and look at this. You cannot see this missile, and there's no markers in ground RB, so he has no idea this missile is on the way. Now, he did damage me, so I decided to go ahead and land, and as you can see, I'm landing on the helipad, and that means that I can just repair. I'm going to speed this up real quick for y'all, and once I finish repairing, it's actually going to give you an air spawn. Only VTOL aircraft can do that. That's one of the huge advantages that the Harrier has as well. Last but not least, you do also get access to the GBU-12s. You can carry up to 10 of them. Personally, I prefer the Mavs over them, but they are still a really nice option, and 10 GBUs is kind of insane. So, I just have really bad luck with these smaller ones just not tracking. In any case, hope y'all have a great day, enjoy the video, and I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.